When I first got into digital marketing, I wanted to become this hotshot media strategist, making six figures and working with major brands. Cliche, right? After realizing that jumping straight from PR into high-level media buying without understanding the fundamentals didn't work out, I gave up on that dream and told myself, well, I guess I can just stick with general marketing and hope something comes up. So that's what I did. 17 years later, I've worked my way up from a $45,000 special projects manager to a media strategist making $125,000 a year in the corporate world. Now, I'm a full-time freelancer, scaling my own agency, and I coach students through CourseCareers who are breaking into this exact field. So yes, today we're talking about how you can become a media buyer in 2025. There's gonna be a lot of information in this video, so if you're serious about becoming a media buyer and landing your first media buyer job, I suggest you listen to the full video. This video is gonna be split up into 5 categories: Google Ads versus Facebook ads, which one should you choose as a media buyer? B2B versus B2C media buying. Again, which one should you choose? Where to start learning Google Ads and Facebook ads, how to land your first media buying job, and finally, timeline to landing your first media buying job. Now, there are many ways to approach media buying. One of the most popular ways is to focus on Google Ads and search-based advertising. Perhaps just as popular is to focus on Facebook ads and social media platforms. There are many social media advertising platforms such as Facebook Ads Manager, TikTok ads, LinkedIn ads, Pinterest ads, and the list kind of just goes on. But as someone new to media buying, I'd suggest learning the Google Ads route. Like I mentioned, there's many ways to run social media advertising campaigns. In my opinion, I think Facebook ads is a solid option. But to run effective Facebook campaigns, you need a pretty strong understanding in customer intent. When I first transitioned from PR to digital marketing at age 25, I started with Google Ads through a Google Grants opportunity at the nonprofit where I was working. Basically, because I had that foundation in search intent and understanding what people were actually looking for, campaigns I produced had much better results than if I jumped straight into social media advertising. So the moral of the story here is start with Google Ads, and eventually, if you really want to get into Facebook advertising, you can pursue that route later on. Now that we've got the Google Ads versus Facebook ads discussion out of the way, let's talk about B2B versus B2C media buying. So which one should you choose? At least here in the United States, you can have a pretty successful career in either B2B or B2C media buying. Primarily, I do B2C media buying, although I am experienced in B2B campaigns as well. In terms of career growth, I don't think it matters which one you pick, because again, here in the United States, you can have a pretty successful career in either. But there are some important things to consider. The biggest one is B2C's lower cost of entry. Basically, you just need a few $100 budget and you can start running consumer campaigns. B2B media buying, on the other hand, requires you to work with much higher budgets because the cost per clicks are so expensive. So this means that you'll probably need to access the bigger budgets or some type of business that can afford upwards of $50 to $100 cost per clicks. Now, one thing I remember when I first started working on some B2B campaigns after years of B2C work, I was shocked to see $25 cost per clicks when I was used to $2 clicks. Then I realized each B2B conversion was worth $5,000 to the business instead of $100. So if you don't have access to bigger marketing budgets, it's going to cost you more to get meaningful data in B2B media buying. So that's something that's pretty important to think about. Additional things to think about is B2C has way more volume. Those customers have lower lifetime value. So if your goal is to learn quickly through high volume testing, you might want to consider B2C media buying. On the flip side, B2B has fewer conversions, but those customers are worth significantly more money. And one really notable thing that I think is important is B2C has just incredible resources on media buying. This is a huge reason why I personally love B2C media buying. I think the training materials are far more extensive than the B2B resources that are out there. So in terms of your career, it doesn't really matter which one you pick. Again, you can have a very successful career in either B2B or B2C media buying. So where should you start learning Google Ads or Facebook ads? This one is kind of a tough one because there's a million different ways to learn out there. You could probably do a quick Google search and figure out where to go, but I guess if I were to do it all over again, this is how I would start. So for Google Ads, I think the best way to start learning is right from the horse's mouth, Google, aka the creators of Google Ads. They have some free courses specifically designed to teach you the basics of Google Ads and campaign management, even if you're brand new to media buying. For Facebook advertising, Meta also offers some free courses. I don't think they're as good as the Google ones, to be honest. They're a little basic, but overall, still a decent place to start dabbling in Facebook advertising for free. There are also free books and tutorials if you prefer that format. Perry Marshall's Ultimate Guide to Google Ads is solid, and I'll put links for all these resources in the description if you're interested. But in my 100% personal experience. The resource that helped me learn media buying the most was learning directly from colleagues and various internal trainings throughout my career. These were people building real campaigns with actual budgets and real results. And I learned so much just by watching over their shoulders and asking questions. So tutorials, books, YouTube channels aside, the absolute best way to learn either Google Ads or Facebook advertising is to get your hands dirty and start running your own campaigns. These campaigns don't even have to be profitable. You don't even have to make money on them, but it's so important that you work on your own campaigns because the thing is, you're gonna get stuck a lot. You're gonna get frustrated. You'll have to figure out how to solve these problems on your own without any tutorials or books. And these growing pains, they're pretty crucial for you to become a media buyer. Also, to land your first job, you'll probably need to build a portfolio with these campaign results. So this kind of leads me into my next point. Here's what I think you need to do to land your first media buyer job. I guess here's how I would go about it if I were trying to do it again. It's important that you learn the basics of Google Tag Manager and how pixels work when you build a portfolio showing your campaign results. You could even make a website showcasing the campaigns that you've managed. Back when I got my first digital marketing job in the early 2000s, to be honest, I didn't have a media buying portfolio. But in 2025, I think it's pretty much a non-negotiable thing that you need if you want to land a media buying job, especially if you're self-taught. After you land your first media buying job, to be honest, I don't think a portfolio really even matters at that point. I've updated my portfolio when applying for different jobs, but because I already had that first job on my resume, my portfolio was never really brought up in an interview. One of those things that's pretty annoying to build, but it's something you need to do to land that first job. The next thing, and probably one of the most important things to landing a media buyer job, is learning best practices. Google has some specific documentation to follow those best practices for Google Ads. For media buyers specifically, the best practices I think you should become most familiar with are campaign structure and audience targeting. Google again has incredible documentation on campaign architecture and also targeting best practices. This is the reason why I love Google Ads. The documentation is so extensive. Whenever you have a question or you need help learning how to use a feature or part of Google Ads, you can reference the Google documentation and you'll probably be all set. Facebook also has some best practices around campaign structure. In Facebook, this includes things like the learning phase and campaign budget optimization. Again, links to all these will be in the description below. Do some research on best practices, and it's pretty crucial that you integrate these best practices in your personal campaigns. This is going to make you stand out tremendously, make employers more keen to hiring you. Here's the real secret, and this is something most people don't do during the job search that would make it much easier for them to land a job: networking. Most marketing jobs are given to people they know or through referrals. Applying on LinkedIn and Indeed is becoming a big waste of time. You've got to connect with people in real life. Be aggressive. Ask for recommendations. I met my future boss through a friend of a friend. We got to talking and he understood my skills and created a position for me. And that's how I transitioned from PR to that first digital marketing role as a special projects manager. The next and most obvious point to landing your first media buyer job is you have to make a resume. Your resume lists your portfolio projects, all the skills that you've acquired along the way, learning media buying, and make sure you put a link into your portfolio. Once your resume and your portfolio is complete, the next thing that you should do is literally apply for every single media buying job you can find. Remote, local, entry level, internship, even jobs that you aren't necessarily interested in. Apply for every single job out there. And that's for two reasons. One, it's a numbers game. After applying for enough jobs, you'll finally get that interview. Number two, when you're interviewing, you have multiple interviews happening at once. Employers pick up on this. Question that I've gotten asked multiple times when I interview is, how are your other interviews going? Or are you looking anywhere else? You kind of want to be equipped to answer this question because not only does that show your value to potential employers, it creates kind of a competition anxiety for other employers, making them more likely to hire you. So the last point that I want to hit on is the timeline to landing your first media buying job. This one is a little more up to you. This is what I would do if I were learning media buying again. I would spend roughly 1 month learning the basics of either Google Ads or Facebook advertising. After learning the basics, I would spend the next 4 to 5 months building my own personal campaigns, because like I said, this is the way to learn media buying the fastest. You kind of just want to throw yourself in the deep end. You want to struggle a little bit. And ultimately, this will make you grow the most as a media buyer. So I would spend that time running my own personal campaigns, building up my portfolio, building up a solid resume. And around the 6-month mark, I would start applying for jobs. I would say if you spend about 10 hours a week, you could probably land your first media buyer job within 6 months, give or take a few. But like I said, 100% my own opinion. Take that advice with a grain of salt, because ultimately it's up to you to figure out how fast you can land your first media buying job. It took me 3 years in PR before I made the transition. But if I had something like CourseCareers available back then, I would be even further in my career today. One of my favorite recent examples is a student named Willie Harrison. Came from a completely different field. He was a truck driver before deciding to enroll in CourseCareers' digital marketing program. Within months, he learned media buying from scratch, built his own campaigns, and landed a paid search job at a marketing agency. Stories like this are a great reminder that your background doesn't limit your future. In my coaching sessions, I see this transformation all the time. Students who stay consistent, ask questions, and actually apply what they learned end up building the exact kind of portfolio that gets them hired. All right, so that was a pretty lengthy video. I hope you took something away from it. Maybe you have another piece of advice that you want to give. If you do, put it in the comments. If you have any questions, again, put it in the comments. I'll try to get back to everybody. That's why I coach inside the CourseCareers digital marketing course. I've seen firsthand how it gives beginners the skills, projects, and career coaching they need to actually get hired. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. If you made it this far, I would really appreciate it if you could like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.